So this tournament is slightly different than our normal FFA tournaments because we're making use of the tournament mod, which has a tiebreaker for ranks 2nd through 4th place. So what we're doing is 3 random seeds, and then after that we're going to have the 4th round. The lower tiered players are going to get a chance to knock off the higher tiered players, and then we'll have your standard 5th round where the winner's in the top. By the way, we've loaded in. I'm Pavlos. Joining me today is Gameslayer. We have EvilDiablo, Twodback, Pavlos, and Adorfield in this Group A round 1 match of the Casuals tournament. Gameslayer, what do you think about this map?
Well, there's definitely some carbon on the right-hand side. That's okay for a scavenger, which of course is not actually, available to be used. There's a ton of iron all over the place, some aluminium. Interestingly, the starting prices have electronics very high, so, robotic perhaps not the best choice, although, with the high carbon.
Robot would be better than Nomad, because aluminum's really low. So Nomad might be a 4th found, so we're kind of looking at a scientist and a expansive, really, along with some robots, and maybe a 4th Nomad.
That's definitely true, although there is definitely some workable silicon on the left-hand side. No core samples for use on the desert, but there is also a lot of water nearby. The water seems to mostly be on the left-hand side, although the far right-hand side has it as well. Just don't be in the middle, basically. Two expansives almost immediately.
2 expansive founds, and then EvilDiablo going with the Nomad. Bought 17 electronics for EvilDiablo, needs to sell down to get the last 3. And Pavlos going with the robot. Let's start from the top. Twodback with the first found, up to HQ2. Going into some water, double iron, making use of that medium iron price. Needs to put down some few steel mills. What do you think about Adorfield's found?
Adorfield, meanwhile, well, he's got the high and the medium iron, so he's got more iron coming at once. He's only level 1. He's only got 1 high metal mine right now. He's got to be a bit worried about this steel price. He's got 75 of it. Oh, he did actually... Ooh, I like that. He went into 15 electronics at the start of the game in the hopes of getting some more profit off of it for when EvilDiablo buys in. But as you know, EvilDiablo has, of course, already bought all 20, so he might as well just sell that down right now. He has no reason not to upgrade at this point. He has sold down his electronics at this point. I don't know. There we go, okay. He's also closest to the carbon, which might be useful for these electronics prices.
Apparently I was told that the music was a little bit too loud, so I turned that down. Hopefully everyone can hear us now. That will be fixed in post when it's on YouTube. But
cool. I would just like to point out, by the way, EvilDiablo's secondary base here has gone into, well, it had gone into so much water it was untrue for him to just push to that HQ2, and now he's going into double farms, which are looking promising for now. No one else is in that market yet. The expansives, of course, having to get up their steel first after their HQ2 upgrade.
I just need to catch up really quick while after dealing with that sound issue. Hopefully everyone can hear us just fine.
Here's hoping. No one is going to power just yet. Power is starting to creep up. I'm kind of surprised to see that it is Pavlos who has picked up the high carbon on the right-hand side of his base rather than Adorfield. Adorfield actually went for the far distant silicon instead. I definitely would rather be in Pavlos' position with just for that right now as the resources stand, but that is an aluminium shortage.
Yeah, that's very far for Adorfield. I mean, even though Adorfield is an expansive HQ, that's still quite the shipping distance. Fuel's cheap for now, but that could change soon.
Twodback, first one to HQ3, no surprise there, and he has gone into even more steel at this point.
That's going to continue to drive the power price up.
I'm thinking he wants to find a geothermal vent. There are 6 on the map. They're not too far away from him. Not too close either, though. And yeah, the black market situation, we haven't talked about that really yet. There are power surges, boosts, and mutinies on the market, so it's quite an aggressive market overall.
So our robots and nomads are a little bit behind, which is kind of what you would expect with the high electronics price, but that is not what you want to see as a nomad or a robot. If you are behind in HQ levels against expansives, you are really behind. Versus, you want to be setting the pace, not catching up to the HQ upgrade pace.
definitely. Although the neutral colony is a glass colony, it has 0.4 electronics consumption, but that 1.2 glass consumption will make up for the fact that we've only got 2 real glass consumers in this game. So that those glass prices and electronics prices will eventually stabilize, but the expansives, if they can be fast enough, will at least get to HQ4 before the glass becomes expensive and someone needs to start making it.
24k for the geothermal plant going to EvilDiablo.
He can afford it. I mean, he needs to do something to get this to get ahead here, being the lowest HQ level right now, and he can afford it in the fact that, you know, he had a lot of excess silicon just lying around there. He may have gone a bit too much into silicon considering the electronics and how long it would take him to upgrade.
But is able to go into a geothermal and 2 solar panels right after upgrading HQ2, so plenty of silicon there. Should be able to get his power under control. Pavlos going into 2 wind turbines. Twodback going into a geo himself, and that leaves adorfield going into a geo. So it looks like power should be getting close to covered.
Yeah, the water prices and, well, life support prices in general just all shot up all of a sudden. That's one of the scariest shortages that you'll tend to find. But surprisingly, Twodback has not sold down any water off of this. Water is up to 60 right now, and he's got 700 of it.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a mistake, but
there we go.
You know, his ears must have been burning all the way in Russia, so that water's sold down.
Oh yeah, second geothermal going up for Twodback right now. Power situation, we've got EvilDiablo, he's got his solar panels up, he's got a geothermal up, and he's already paying it off. He's already back down to 29, he was at almost 40k on the threshold before he's, straight after that auction. Twodback on the other hand, he's got his 2 geothermals, he's paying it down slightly quicker, but not very much because he's using so much power on these steel mills. Ooh, we got some adrenaline boost goosebump mutiny action going on, I apologize. Should not be looking at that one, this is good.
There was a lot of action going on. I think everybody is back to owning their original geotherms, unless I've missed something. But the power situation does seem to be stabilizing. EvilDiablo, Twodback are able to pay off some of that debt with that power.
Twodback was able to get his adrenaline boosted geothermal right there that he did defend, which has made it so that Diablo is not going to be able to profit, unfortunately, off of this power. He probably would have without that boost.
Yeah, EvilDiablo won't be able to profit, but they will be able to pay through the vast majority of their debt. Unfortunately, EvilDiablo HQ3 behind adorfield, who's on HQ4, and Pavlos, who's finally starting to catch up in terms of HQ levels.
Definitely Pavlos being the first one up. He did actually go into those wind turbines, which, you know, they have helped. You know, I didn't even notice that he had that much power up, but he is only at 7k debt at this point. Being a robot, those shortages on the life support did not hurt him in the slightest.
Network virus gives us time to catch our breath and sort of get stock of what's going on, who has what.
Twodback, he's moving into electrolysis. All that water he had stockpiled, moving into electrolysis. Everyone else is into food right now, basically. Even food is not dying. No, 3 players into food, actually. Adorfield is the only one in glass at this point, though. Surprising considering EvilDiablo, it's such a natural market for him. I'll expect him to see it go into that. Once he finally gets that 18k for electronics, that is really high electronics. Oh, he's got it just now, but geez, that's expensive.
Yeah, that's a quite expensive upgrade. One of the reasons why I would have hesitated founding Nomad, because not only do you have to worry about that high electronics price, like the robot, but you also have to worry about life support on top of it, and we can sort of see that being a little bit of an issue for EvilDiablo, slowing the Nomad upgrades from one of the fastest factions to upgrade to one of the slowest. Pavlos moving into a patent lab, and then the first pleasure dome on the field from adorfield, getting a perfect surround. You don't see that happening very often.
That is just beautiful. 326 a second at $11 power right now. That is just beautiful. Everyone also moving into electronics at this point. EvilDiablo went into triple electronics, double glass with his claims. Adorfield is now in triangle, and Pavlos is in a double for electronics there. Surprisingly, the patent lab is currently pretending to be a greenhouse farm, when he should probably manually turn that into an electronics factory. It just looks smarter being electronics than a farm at this stage.
Factory, or even a pleasure dome right next to the habitats.
definitely
is going for thinking machines. That makes sense, as when you look at the off-world markets right now, 34k profit for Oxygen, even though Oxygen is 157 and climbing, so that's a pretty good launch right there.
It's a pretty good launch, although a lot of people using the glass is definitely going to raise that price before the end.
Right, but even so, that'll push it down somewhere into the mid-20s or whatever. It'll still be a quite decent launch, especially if you can keep your off-worlds online, which thinking machines will definitely help. This has been, other than that original
The black market is open for business.
mutiny, back and forth, a low black market game. We have 4.5 power surges, and somebody mutinies.
Twodback did just recently freeze out Diablo's electronics factories, and now his mutiny is also targeted by Pavlos, who is trying to make really good use of this high carbon price. No one else has gone into carbon apart from EvilDiablo at this point, which is quite scary for him. As Thinking Machines finishes up, what are we going to see next? Are we going to see carbon scripting to stop your opponent? Nope, straight into nanotech. Okay, that makes sense. I really want to see him take a
available for option.
Especially because steel is awkward. He's only going into 2 of it at this point. He's trying not to overproduce on steel. I would really like to see him go into geothermal borehole before too long. That plus superconductor will just make up for all of his the power issues in the future. And I just really like putting down, say, 2 pleasure domes next to the colony, which is next to a geothermal plant.
Yeah, he originally was going for geothermal borehole and then decided against it, probably because the power's so cheap, there's no reason to go into geothermal borehole. But a robot with geothermal borehole is so good. You have to wonder why he went for those wind turbines in the first place.
Well, I mean, it did pay off. He's only at 6k deaths.
It did pay off.
Despite everything.
That's true. I'm not saying
a lot of people now buying into their own stock, defending themselves. Diablo did freeze out those electrolysis factories by Adorfield right there, who definitely doesn't like that. EvilDiablo needs to do exactly... There we go. Okay, he did hit 5. I was going to say he needs to get to 5 as soon as possible because he is so far behind at this point.
Yeah, EvilDiablo's definitely a little bit far behind. Doesn't have enough aluminum income using 0.75 a second. That's actually a significant amount once that stockpile goes away, because he does have... It is 115, but moving out of the electronics factories, or they auto-offed. That's what happened. Electronics is auto-offing. Nanotech for Pavlos. Adorfield finally getting into a patent lab themselves. Pavlos now moving into slant drilling.
I don't really feel like you need that. I mean, I guess that does improve his water supply a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. But what I do like to see is that Diablo did move into some aluminium to make up for this really high price, because the only person who could really use it at this point was Pavlos, and Pavlos has not overcommitted to it. He's only put in 1 into his aluminium right now. He wants to keep those farms up and running right now. I'm not sure that's the best choice, but you know, I mean, the water situation is a lot better than it was looking at just recently. People have now sold down their water.
So Adorfield's Pleasure Dome, Goon now making $416 a second on 31 power, going into virtual reality.
Virtual reality.
This is going to make Adorfield a killing, and nobody is doing anything to stop it right now.
Diablo's decided he wants to just boost out his farms and water. That's okay, but the price isn't going to stay forever. Diablo, unfortunately, is not in any real markets that are going to just be long-term profitable. Okay, he's getting up a patent lab, but unfortunately he's going for slant drilling that finishes in 5 for Pavlos.
Yep. Thanks to the UE Plus mod, we are able to see all the patent labs going at the same time. Twodback is going into the first off-world market. Actually got a pretty good price for that, 86k after it went up, so I imagine it would have been closer to 65k to actually build.
Yeah, I mean, those glass and electronics prices are expensive, but as an expensive, he does have to spend half the price on steel. He is floating quite a bit of iron at this point at $42. I was surprised he hasn't decided to sell any of that down. I would like to point out as well, EvilDiablo, because the UI mod, yay, EvilDiablo is going to be the first one to carbon scrubbing, and no one else is even going to compete. Okay, he's going there, that just fine.
Yeah, those launches, even though Oxygen went up, 35k profit on Oxygen, 30k on food, 25 on fuel. This is a really good off-world market despite the higher prices
So,
because of this,
and oxygen.
when oxygen is the thing being launched, I tend to like to put down optimization centers so I can optimize some oxygen, because oxygen tends to be one of those resources that isn't easy to create. The only way to really make it on Mars is the 0.44 electrolysis reactors. Those aren't the best, you know. So I would like to see someone move into optimization centers at this point. We've got 3 pattern labs, which you don't normally see.
Yeah, so that pleasure dome we talked about earlier, $633 per second, only using $88 in power.
So
a
nice,
second.
and the colony has expanded over the top of some of the geothermal borehole potential areas that Pavlos might have been wanting to use, but I think Pavlos used up all of his claims, so never mind. Pavlos could definitely make use of the glass warehouses right next to his base, actually, to create a really, really good off-world, but he has no claims.
Yeah, no claims. There is an auction to claim for 3K though. That might be worth it, but people would probably guess what's going on there. But thinking machines, maybe you risk it. There are no dynamites though, so at least it's not going to get blown up if people see through it.
Yeah, it's a very safe play to put an off-world there if you have the claim to do so. Unfortunately, this is the problem of robotics. They just don't have enough claims sometimes. His off-world is now going up next to a hackerspace, so he's not going to get anything out of it.
EvilDiablo moving into Superconductor also has the first optimization center, which is finished, starting to optimize glass, which seems to be a curious choice, as single glass buildings only making $20 per second.
Yes, but he is also selling down all of that silicon. He's got so much of it, and Pavlos had
Pavlos
200 of it sitting around.
Extra claim.
He's been selling
put
it
it right here in the off-world spot.
Yes,
build the
off-world, second off-world spot.
Do it, Pavlos.
You just place the claim right now. You place the claim right now so that the colony can't expand into it.
everything.
Hopefully Pavlos did notice that. Twodback going into the second off-world, gooned, hidden as a water pump.
He's gonna get away with it.
Probably.
Although I will say at this point, he is launching food when oxygen is the correct launch.
Yeah, oxygen's still 42k. The hedging his bets a little bit too much. Adorfield going into a pattern that you don't see very often, Energy Vault.
That's an interesting one. I mean, generally I would rather spend those 40 seconds changing it to a different building, like an off-world that he could afford right now. But, you know, I guess he wants the energy vault. He's already got financial instruments for some weird reason. Adorfield did pick up the superconductor. Is he even using superconductor for anything?
No.
That's a shame, because power is pretty highly priced right now, and EvilDiablo would definitely want that. Because he's got into triple solar power to try and hurt this price, which of course doesn't work on dust storms.
EvilDiablo was attempting to go into Superconductor, but was beaten to it. Pavlos finally building that second off-world. Hopefully, yes, in the good off-world spot, hidden as a patent lab. I mean, if people are paying attention whatsoever, they know this is an off-world. But not
yeah, well, it's not like you can hide it as a hacker array, because hacker arrays hide themselves as something else, you know.
One thing I'm a little bit surprised of is that Adorfield has never boosted the Pleasure Dome. Adrenaline boosts are only 10k. I think that would pay for itself.
And Pleasure Domes are those unique types of buildings that, because they only use power, you can boost them and the power cost doesn't increase, so it's pure profit.
Well, we do have people starting to secure their stock, and surprisingly, EvilDiablo is doing quite well in terms of the amount of cash on hand after securing the stock.
That's only because he has been the only one to not be in 2 off-worlds at this point. Instead, he's going to 3 chem refineries, and he queues up like 8 things.
Yeah, it's a little bit excessive. Just a little.
Just a little bit. Okay. It looks like they're finding the Twodback's off-world there. He has been boosting his off-worlds. He's been making a lot of money off of it. In fact, oxygen is so ridiculously high right now. Diablo, I seriously hope you have been researching oxygen. Okay, you're doing that next, because my god, that is definitely the market to be in at this stage. So is electronics. But you know, there's a lot of money to be made on this Mars game.
Yeah, there's plenty of money to be made. Look at that carbon price: 300 for a high carbon tile, 131 for a single electronics factory. Although that's EvilDiablo, who has carbon scrubbing, so it's a little bit less if you don't have carbon scrubbing.
Yeah, EvilDiablo also has 850 carbon. Just saying, at $128, you might want to sell that. Just saying.
Yeah, probably should sell some of that, take advantage of the really high price before somebody else. Does anybody else have anywhere near a stockpile? No, so he's lucky in that regard.
He's fine with it. He's fine with it for now. It is a carbon negative map overall if you discount his income. Twodback and adorfield's spending more in expenditure on carbon than Pavlos is incoming, but still. It's very risky to be holding on to that carbon so much. So the question is, players are getting up into that 400, 500k range in terms of cash on hand. When do you start going on the offense, and who do you decide to go against? Probably an expansive. The expansives are the cheapest, and they are the most powerful right now. Like Pavlos. Well, okay. I was gonna say Pavlos is probably the one going to be going for a buy first, because he's now secured that third offworld. But no, probably Diablo really wants to get a buy off as soon as possible at this point. The quicker you can get a buy, the quicker you can make up for the fact that he does not have offworlds at this point.
Diablo
offworlds are ridiculously expensive for him to make.
On Twodback, but it's going into adorfield as adorfield decides to go into EvilDiablo. Pavlos has to be breathing a sigh of relief.
They are both good choices. Twodback is more profitable for now because of his boost specifically, but adorfield does have that beautiful pleasure dome. And you know an AI isn't going to get rid of pleasure domes.
AI won't get rid of the offworlds either.
Well, yes, that's very true.
What a payout.
I don't know. In terms of optimizations, adorfield hasn't really done any.
Adorfield
he hasn't really done any. Twodback is the more profitable guy in terms of that.
Barely has a few more. EvilDiablo going into perfect for electronics. Usually you'd say that's a little bit overkill, but in this case maybe it's okay. Now the question is, what is Pavlos going to do with this huge stockpile? Has 100% of almost everybody.
But just finish off adorfield. The AI will then really ruin this. The AI will ruin this power price. Do you see how much money adorfield is making on power right now? Imagine if his debt was wiped and the AI was making it.
EvilDiablo instead.
Okay. I mean, that's fair, I guess, but I would much rather be fighting a Nomad in the late game than an expensive.
That is true.
Diablo has some really, really good optimizations, but with no offworlds.
So splitting EvilDiablo with adorfield, but Pavlos does get 3 shares into adorfield for completing the buy. And now adorfield's going to go into Twodback.
That's an interesting choice considering Pavlos owns some of him, but you can't really stop that from happening. So it's just going to be Twodback and adorfield fighting it out very awkwardly at this point. I guess thinking about it, Pavlos does secure the win if he does that play, because those two are just going to have to fight each other over it. And Twodback is going to beat adorfield in this fight. Then it's going to be Pavlos versus Twodback, and Pavlos just has a slight bit of subsidiary advantage.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this actually goes. Twodback is 72% of the way of the buy onto adorfield. Pavlos still has adorfield's off-world market.
Adorfield at this point has paid off his debt for, so he is making money off of power, but not very much right now. These wind turbines are coming up just as the dust storm is going to turn up in 40 seconds, and that's going to be a lot of extra income coming in his way. He's already making so much of this.
Very short burst of income, and then it's all going to disappear. Pavlos is actually helping adorfield by hacking up the price of power.
Black market is online.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, that's just going to be a bad idea. I don't know what else to say about that. His subsidiary is not making nearly enough power to make up for that, compared to what adorfield's going to be making Twodback. But of course, in all this time, Pavlos has been able to make up a huge cash stockpile, right? If Twodback does buy into adorfield, this is the classic.
On to adorfield right now.
They both have to buy onto each other at this point. Wow.
Adorfield's
power play is paid off. He's actually going to get Twodback. Okay, that's even better for Pavlos. Even better for Pavlos, because he's already 3 stocks into adorfield. Now he can just buy the other 2. He's got a 200k cash lead in exchange for being a full subsidiary behind. But And this power shortage, even though it's a shortage, even though you really helped out your opponent with that 21 plus power a second, you know, that's not going to be making Adorfield much money.
No, went a little bit overkill into power, just a little
bit overkill.
But
Just
transitioning out of it right now, back into electronics.
Shipment launched.
For Adorfield,
Only 9.5.
Money.
actually, steel would be a better thing to transition into. Look at the price of steel versus the price of iron.
Yeah. Pavlos, I mean, Adorfield's going to start buying into him. That's going to keep him alive for a while. But Pavlos does have
Pavlos could finish this by selling some of his stocks.
I believe, yes, he also knows where Twodback's offworlds are for some mutiny players if he really wants to do that.
I mean, Muni's
he's selling
are
out his stock now.
50k. Yeah, Pavlos is going to finish it and become the victor of the match, most likely, barring any unforeseen circumstances.
Successful.
It's only about a 2% difference, but each time, but that's all you really need at this point. He's just going to be able to finish that kill off. Well played to all players, honestly, apart from maybe Diablo. Diablo's early game was a bit weak, but of course he was a nomad. He did transition a lot better into that, so well played to all players there. That was a very long game, just the expansives were able to hold out, were able to... Well, no, they didn't, they lost. Robots won. So very well done to Pavlos.
And so, this is the ranking from FFA ranks here. EvilDiablo is asking why they are second. We can actually scroll up and see why, if they stop chatting. When EvilDiablo got purchased out, you can see that EvilDiablo had a significantly large amount of cash over everybody else, which is why FFA ranks has decided that EvilDiablo was second.
Does the FFA ranks take into account income from subsidiaries?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, because it does seem a little weird that Adorfield is fourth, considering he owned half of EvilDiablo for so long, and his subsidiary was very profitable. Of course, I can't see this, being the secondary caster. I can't see any of this, unfortunately. So that's another thing we have to file as a book.
I'm sorry? You can't see the chat? Because it should be seeable.
Oh, I can't. Oh, yeah. It's in chat. Oh, okay.
Yeah, just scroll up.
My apologies.
So you can see everything there. Why?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Why it chose what it chose for the tie breaks, and like once you look at the numbers, it makes sense. Now so we can look at the balance sheet, and the income numbers there are going to be slightly different than the income numbers here on this balance sheet because the FFA ranks mod prorates debt versus Offworld just subtracts it at 100%.
Also, we have to remember as well that EvilDiablo's upgrades were expensive. Silicon did get expensive for a very long time. No one was really interested in the glass market. And because his upgrades were expensive and he was spending it all, I assumed that helped with keeping his revenue high.
Well, we can go look at EvilDiablo and see what they made versus Pavlos, and you can see that EvilDiablo actually at the end of the day had sold 1.754k versus of resources, which was the same amount that Pavlos had sold. So you can see that they were doing quite well, and they were the first one bought out. The only thing where Pavlos comes ahead in the long term was Pavlos did have those off-worlds, and you can see that Pavlos made an additional 724k. No, I'm sorry, wrong line. 1.3 million off of those off-worlds.